Well, we're getting some more details, Alex. I can tell you that President Obama landed at 11:46 Eastern time, and he's traveling with his NSA advisor, Susan Rice, also top advisors, Dan Pfeiffer, John Podesta, who has a son who is serving in Afghanistan. Now, this is his fourth visit to Afghanistan, his first since May of 2012. You'll recall he delivered that speech at the presidential palace during that visit, Alex. And of course, as we have been reporting, the reason for the secrecy has to do with protecting the president's safety. Now, the centerpiece of this visit, Alex, is going to be a rally with 32,000 Americans who are currently serving in Afghanistan. And country music singer Brad Paisley, who also traveled on Air Force One with President Obama, will perform at that event. Now, this visit comes against the backdrop of the mounting VA scandal here at home. President Obama dispatched one of his top advisors, Deputy Chief of Staff Rob Neighbors, to the VA hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, where it is reported that as many as 40 veterans may have died while waiting for care there. So Rob Neighbors spent a day there at the end of the week talking to officials at that facility, trying to get to the bottom of specifically what went wrong and how it can be prevented moving forward. So that is the backdrop as President Obama marks this Memorial Day with this surprise visit, thanking troops for their service in Afghanistan. One more point that I will make, Alex, is that he is, of course, also deciding what the troop levels will be after 2014. That remains a big question mark. We don't anticipate that we are going to hear a lengthy statement from President Obama while he is in Afghanistan, but a lot of moving parts. And as you said, this is a surprise to you, to me. We are monitoring these developments as they happen in real time.
Yeah.
Alex?
I love getting this kind of information as I'm being mic'd up and literally the desk behind me says, here's something you need to know. Okay, it's all good.
Little nugget.
Little nugget of info, which we love.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Absolutely,
that, Kristen Walker.
Alex.
Well, joining me now, Democratic Congressman John Garamendi from California. He sits on the Armed Services Committee. So with a welcome to you, sir. Nice to see you again on the broadcast. I want to ask you to talk about your thoughts with the president landing there at the Bagram Airfield and spending time with the troops over this Memorial Day holiday. How much goodwill does that buy? I mean, what is that like for the troops?
Well, by all accounts, whether it's this president or any of the former presidents, it means a great deal to them. They know that the commander-in-chief, the president, is with them, concerned about them, and will provide them with whatever they may need. And Congress the same way. We really need to look out for these troops, make sure they get what they need, not only there, but then after they leave the military and become veterans. And that is a major issue, as you've already discussed. Well,
which we're going to discuss further right this moment, because I wanted to ask you to put this into context. I mean, you have the president in the present tense with those troops, giving them the bolster of support that they need by his presence. And yet, with regard to what's happening with the VA scandal, talk about where we stand with this and how long you think it's going to get to figure this one out and get it fixed.
We're going to be at this for the next 40 years. This is not just a one-day issue. This is not just a one-issue problem. We have at least 2 million men and women coming back from 2 very, very lengthy wars, many of them with illnesses that we've not seen or diagnosed previously. So it's going to be a long time, and for the rest of their lives, in one way or another, we owe it to them to provide whatever they may need in the way of medical services, jobs, as well as mental health services, because they've served us so very, very well during these 2 very lengthy, very complex, and dangerous wars.
And Representative Garamendi, the prospect of sending veterans to private care facilities if they can't get what they need, I mean, if you're talking about a 40-year resolution to get this thing straightened out, people can't wait that long, obviously. So how do you feel about that?
Well, we're certainly not suggesting that they wait 40 years.
No,
this
but
problem
going to the
will be with America. Yeah. Well, I think private care is always an option, and we ought to look at that. The veterans hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. We have many, but we don't have enough beds to take care of all of the potential illnesses. So we ought to be looking at contracting out with various facilities, private, other public facilities, all of which could and should be able to provide quality care and do away with the waiting periods, which I'm afraid are going to be inevitable as these veterans begin to take the services that they are justified and necessary.
The president waited nearly 4 weeks to speak out about this topic. Do you think that was a mistake?
I don't know. You have to look at that from the political context of an election year, and everything is political. But I think the real issue is what happened, can it be prevented in the future, and how are we going to deal with the known problems and the extraordinary workload that the Veterans Administration is going to have. There are obviously some management issues. We have a management issue here in the Oakland Center. That's been an ongoing issue, and this isn't for services that were known. These are just people trying to sign up to get the services that they need. So I know that my colleagues in Congress have been after the Oakland Center for, well, 3 years that I know of that I've been in Congress. So there are ongoing management issues, but there's also a surge of veterans that are loading the system, and in some cases overloading the system. That requires Congress to provide the necessary services. Senator Sanders has a very, very important piece of legislation that we ought to be moving forward on that provides the kind of services and changes to the Veterans Administration. Perhaps one of those changes will be to utilize private or other public hospitals to provide the services that these veterans need. So we've got a challenge. We've put a lot of money into this already. We're going to have to provide more. And as I say, these veterans are going to live out their life with the effects of these two wars. And it's our responsibility, all of America, every single one of us, and certainly the government, to make sure that they have the services that they need to make their lives whole. And let's not forget about the jobs. The job is really one of the more important things that these veterans need when they return home.
No
we have a
denying
program.
that.
Sure. Thanks.
Sir, may I ask you quickly, I want to change gears here and talk about some comments that came from California Governor Jerry Brown. He made them on Monday about the shifting climate. And here's what he said, quote, that California is right at the epicenter of climate change. The average temperature is rising, the soil is drier, it is easier for forest fires to erupt and spread, as we've been seeing in our state in recent days. Do you, sir, share that theory that California's wildfires, the drought, the extreme heat are a sign that it could be ground zero for climate change?
Well, California certainly is. I've been on this issue for more than 20 years when I was Deputy Secretary at the Department of Interior. We knew then, this was in the mid-1990s, that California was going to be very severely affected by climate change. We're seeing the biggest snowpack, the biggest reservoir, the Sierra snows, less and less. That snow is moving up the mountains as things warm. We're seeing perhaps as much as a 40% decline in the snowpack, and that's the big reservoir. And the other things that the governor talked about are absolutely true. Sea level's rising also, so, you know, sell your Malibu beach home at the right moment. Otherwise, it's going to be somewhere else, probably floating in the ocean somewhere. So we've got some real serious challenges here, but it's also nationwide. This is not just a California problem. The drought is found in California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Oregon, Texas, and even in Georgia. So this is an ongoing problem for this nation, and frankly, I don't understand why the Congress of the United States, my Republican colleagues there, are deniers of the fact that we have to address this.
Let's hope that some wiser heads prevail and it does get addressed in the appropriate way. Democrat Congressman from California, John Garamendi. Nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to be joined right now on the phone by NBC's chief foreign correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, I'd like you to